Hey, let me ask you something. Have you ever gotten a promise from God, a prophecy, or maybe just this deep gut feeling that something huge was meant for you? But then years go by and nothing? It's super common, and honestly, it can be really frustrating. So today, we're going to break down a practical strategy for what to do when it feels like that divine promise is just stuck in traffic.
I mean, that's the big question, right? You hear a word, you feel a calling, but when you look around, your life looks nothing like it. It's a confusing place to be for sure. So, what's the move? Are we supposed to just sit back and wait, or is there actually something more we're meant to be doing?
Okay, so first things first, let's just get a handle on what's going on with a delayed promise. The most important thing to remember is that this isn't new. In fact, this whole waiting game is a major theme in some of the most famous stories of faith.
Seriously, if you're waiting, you are in some incredible company. Think about it. Abraham gets this massive promise. He'll be the father of nations, and then he spends the next 25 years looking at his wife Sarah, who's still not pregnant. Joseph dreams about being a leader and, whoops, ends up in a pit and then a prison. David gets anointed to be the next king and then has to spend years running for his life. Their stories tell us one really important thing. The waiting period doesn't mean the promise is dead. A lot of the time, it's actually part of the process.
Okay, now this is where things get really, really interesting. So check this out. The idea here is that only about 10% of divine promises are unconditional, the kind that are going to happen no matter what we do. But the other 90%, whoa, they're conditional. They actually need us to cooperate for them to happen. This whole idea points to a God who wants to partner with us, who invites us into the story. It means you're not just a spectator, you have a role to play. And what you do or don't do can actually speed up or slow down the whole thing.
So, if we have a role to play, what does that actually look like in real life? Well, the very first part of the strategy is all about our internal posture. It's about what we choose to believe, and maybe just as importantly, what we choose to say.
The foundation is built right here. Step one, you have to believe it, even when, and especially when, your circumstances are screaming the exact opposite. And step two, you have to confess it. You got to speak it out loud, day in and day out. This isn't just wishful thinking. The source material says this is how you actively partner with what God wants to do.
And this slide just lays out the daily battle perfectly, doesn't it? Your circumstances might be whispering, "I'm not qualified." But the promise says, no, you will be a leader. Your situation might be screaming, "It's impossible." But the promise says, "I will make a way." So every single day, you have a choice. Which voice are you going to listen to? And which one are you going to put on repeat?
This is exactly why speaking the promise is so critical. The book of Proverbs puts it so clearly. The tongue has the power of life and death. With your words, you can either speak life over your promise, water it with faith, or you can speak death over it, starving it with your doubt. So here's this incredibly powerful piece of advice. Be your own prophet. Take that word that was spoken over you and turn it into your daily prayer. This changes everything. You're no longer praying some generic prayer. You start declaring, "God, you said this would happen, and right now I am agreeing with it. I am aligning my words with your word." So once your inner world, your beliefs, your words is all lined up, the focus kind of shifts outward. The next part of the strategy is about what you do, how you guard that promise, and how you listen for specific instructions.
And these next two steps are just as crucial. You've got to actively protect your heart from all the doubt that other people or even your own fears will try to plant in there. And second, you have to be listening for and ready to obey specific, actionable instructions from God.
Now hold on, because there is a massive, massive difference between obeying God and trying to, help God out. Helping God is what we do when we get impatient. We take matters into our own hands and we try to force things to happen on our own timeline. And let me tell you, that almost never ends well.
And Abraham is our perfect case study for this. Just look at this timeline. He gets the promise at 75. A decade goes by, nothing. So at 86, he and Sarah decide to help God out, and Ishmael is born. That one act of human impatience created conflict that literally echoes for thousands of years. It wasn't until 14 years later, when Abraham was 100, that the actual promised son, Isaac, was born. The lesson is crystal clear. Our impatience can create some really long-term problems.
But on the other hand, real, specific obedience, that can be the very key that unlocks the whole thing. The speaker in our source tells this incredible story about how she felt God telling her to empty her bank account and give all the money to someone. Logically, made zero sense, but she did it. And the result?
Within 2 weeks, she had a visa to come to the United States with her flight and her hotel all paid for. Wow. Her one single act of obedience unlocked the next chapter of her destiny.
All right, this brings us to the final and maybe the most overlooked reason that a promise gets delayed. Sometimes it isn't about your timing, and it isn't even about God's timing. Sometimes a promise is delayed because it's being actively fought against.
See, the Bible doesn't describe our journey of faith as a peaceful walk in the park. It's framed as a struggle, a fight. And it says this fight isn't with other people, but with these unseen spiritual forces. What that means is, when a promise is released from heaven, it might actually face some serious opposition on its way down to you.
21. This number, it represents one of the clearest pictures of this spiritual resistance in the entire Bible. And it all comes from the story of a prophet named Daniel.
So Daniel is praying and fasting, just pouring his heart out. And on the 21st day, an angel finally shows up and says something that should just blow our minds. He says, "Daniel, your prayer was heard on the very first day, and I was sent to you. But a spiritual power resisted me for 21 days. It was only because Daniel kept on praying that heavenly backup was sent and the answer could finally break through. His persistence in prayer literally changed the outcome in the spiritual realm."
So, what does all of this mean for you? Right now, in your life, as you're waiting for your own promise, it means you have an active, powerful, crucial role to play. So let's just recap the whole strategy. Here it is, your spiritual game plan in 5 clear steps. Number 1, believe it, no matter what it looks like. 2, confess it. Speak it into existence in your prayers. 3, protect it from doubt. 4, obey the specific, sometimes weird instructions you get. And finally, number 5, fight for it in prayer, understanding that your persistence is powerful and can bring heaven to earth.
Look, waiting doesn't have to be passive. It's not a waiting room, it's a training ground. It can be a time of powerful partnership with God. So the big question this leaves us with is this: what promise has been lying dormant in your life? And what's the very first step you're going to take today to believe it, to confess it, to obey, and to start fighting for its fulfillment?